Hey, Erica. No idea what I'm doing. Waiting for Margaret. Never did this before. Don't know how this is going to go. Bear with us 1 minute. Hello. We're still trying to figure this out. All right. All right. Here we go. We got something. Maybe.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Yeah.
This is really, I know no one's on here yet, but this is really stressful trying to figure that out.
It's very stressful, but it's the first time. And yes, that was very stressful. Sorry. I apologize.
All right.
Okay. So here.
Now, somehow, I mean, if anybody does watch, they should really know we've known each other for a long time. So
Yeah.
the fact of this being serious the whole time may not be like that, right?
Yes. And we both understand each other's anxiety about this thing.
Going live.
Going live.
All right.
Do it live. All right.
Do it live.
So we wanted to talk about COVID and relationships and the self, correct?
Yeah, I think, one of the things, we were talking about this offline. I think, you work with a lot of single folks. I work with a lot of couples and families, and the connection is still like, it's tough, whether you're single or together as a couple. Like this COVID thing has been, it's been a long haul we've been in here.
Yes. And I think people have a lot of fatigue and also experiencing a lot of touch deprivation. And that just means like being around people and, having someone touch your arm or being able to give someone a hug or just having real close physical proximity to somebody. And if you're a single person, you're not getting the hugs, the touches, the walking by someone closely that you used to. And that can lead to people actually feeling as if their feelings can mirror someone who's been in solitary confinement. Society's already set up so we're so separate anyway, but now it's heightened. It can lead to feelings of depression, increased aggression, loneliness. It's something you really have to think about. If you're a single person, not paired up in any way, or someone like that, see if you can invite them. If you have like a COVID pod, people who have the same level of concern as you have over the pandemic and keep the same, level of care in terms of who they interact with, invite them into your pod if you can, so they can feel a hug or closeness with someone else. If you're single, go ahead.
When we talked about this and we brought this up, I thought you forget about that human, that touch, it's like there's so much research that even that human contact, a touch, a hug, I'm still tempted when I see people to shake their hand to, I like to hug it out with people, like that's just who I am. And I just an easy way to kind of feel connected with someone. And it's just nice, and there's so much research shows that that does release little bits of serotonin. And that's a big part of, like you said, that, we talk about, people really isolated, it really triggers their depression to get worse without any time.
Yeah, and you can seek that out and want that. It's a loss. It's a real loss.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it is I can't, for single folks out there trying to figure it out, it's a big loss. And even people who are in a family, just to have those other people, you know, like I think, you know, seeing your mother, your father, seeing, you know, your sister, like, you know, we're also, so many people are so on edge about, you know, getting this. And it's been very, you know, this, especially lately, this such a spike in cases that, you know, I think we're all just, it's hard to just enjoy a hug. You know, I don't know if that sounds weird,
Right.
but it is true, right?
Yeah, I have clients who have older parents who they don't live with anymore, and there's an anxiety that their parent is alone and not with anybody, but feeling that they have to quarantine or take special precautions every time they see them. The parent might be more anxious than they are, or they might be more anxious than the parent is. But you know, they're on their own, and you want to hug them, you want to be around them, you want to be able to touch them on the arm or something. It really is. And if you have a family and you have children and they're not seeing their grandparents, it heightens their anxiety, and it gives them another person that they can't kind of unload on. A grandparent can be great for a kid when they want to share problems, secrets, or they want to complain about you, you know.
Absolutely. They
and
miss them, you know?
yeah, it's nice to be face to face. There's something to be said that, you know, going over Zoom and talking to people over, you know, using a camera. I think that's great. It's been very helpful in so many ways, but sometimes it's not the same as being in the room with someone, feeling them there.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, and I should have looked into this a little bit more, but what I do remember reading is that some of the science behind touch, some of the science behind like like the actual chemical releases we get in the brain when we around people, when there's touch, when we're actually face to face with somebody, you know, like we are social creatures, you know, we forget.
Yes.
And even
Yes.
as a couple, you know, as a couple, sometimes like, you know, we're together, so we think, oh, we're okay together. But couples are also social. Like they want to be with other people and go out to dinner and do different things, you know, and there's that, we start to feel very alone in our lives.
Yes. And I think it can cause, wouldn't you say it can cause for a couple a lot of stress to be placed on them? Because if you're really just like alone together with just the two of you, and you don't have other voices coming in or other people you can unload on, your partner becomes your only person. And that's too much pressure to put on one person.
Yeah. Well, and I think interesting too is I've learned with couples right now in COVID, and you know, it's like we're all working out of the house. Now our offices are in our homes. You know, we got the home. So like even when we're together, are we really together? You know, sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in the, you know, you're in your office, I got two kids in the basement of my house who are both on school. I got my wife's in her office doing work. I'm usually at this office doing work or at school. Like, you know, so like while we're together, it's hard to turn work off because it's, you know, especially at home, it's always on, right? For those of you.
Have you had people tell you that they don't feel like they're working from home? They feel like they're living at work. You know,
so true.
It's always there, always there.
And what that is, and you and I know, like all that means is like when I leave work, there's a sense of, but when now work is home, that sense of anxiety, you know, like that sense of just angst that's still there. Like I always had, especially early on, like kept getting drawn into my office. Like there's, you know, like the stress is in there. If I just do one more thing, right? You know, and to be in your home, in your safe spot, you know, whether you're single or the family, to always have now that's become a source of stress.
Right.
You know, it's
because there's always
amazing.
one more thing. There's always one more thing you can keep getting drawn in there. Right. And you have to set firm boundaries. And it's so hard to set that when you're at home and it's just over there on the countertop.
Just one more email, just one more phone call, you know. My kids have been busting on. My kids have been like, they're busting on me because my new line apparently during this quarantine, it's like, I just got to make a call, you know. And now they're like, oh, every time I leave, he's just got to make a call. Now like, they're giving it to me bad at home with that, but they're right because
maybe that's good.
It is good. It is good.
It'll help you to set those boundaries. It's so easy, and I do the same thing where I just add one thing on, and then you realize at the end of the night you haven't really interacted as much as you wanted.
Yeah.
You know, time is your most, that's my other thing I always say, time is your most precious resource. You can never make any more. You can never earn any more. You only have this much, and you have to decide where you're going to put it.
Yeah.
So setting that firm
Totally true.
boundary, you know, people feel selfish setting that firm boundary, but it's your, you know, you're going to look back and you want to have the time interacting with others, inviting a single person over your house if you can, and you know, really talking. This is we need to kind of bond and connect as much as we can.
Yeah. And yeah, it's true. Because even, like I said, even when the families are all together, it's like we're not, listen, the dinners are gone, you know, for a lot of us. Like we're not comfortable going out to dinner. Like all these things, we'd go out and do something, you know, like gives you something to talk about before, something to talk about after. All those are little moments to help you connect with your partner, you know, or even if you're dating someone, right? Like all those little things, topics of conversation, there's back and forth and exchanging of ideas, which feels good. That's good for our mental health, that interaction.
No, you really, and we were talking too about how the Norwegians, because they have so many days, so many hours of night at this time of year, have developed, you know, community events around being outside and being like, they're almost socially distanced, but they're still outside even in the cold. And we almost have to invite that into our lives. I'm not talking about taking up skiing or snowboarding, but going for a walk or having a cup of coffee with someone and doing something outside, you know, anything that you can think of so you can interact, but still not mitigate, you know, still watch your risk level is important, you know. So if you can be outside building something, having a cup of coffee, that's positive.
Well, being outside has always been one of the best antidepressants for anybody, right? Just being outside in nature, walking around outside, like especially in the middle of winter, you know, it's like people don't want to, we're all in hibernation mode. At least I get to be. But when we go outside, there's a natural, you know, it releases good, again, and all that stuff in the chemicals in the brain, like we need that, especially now. So I couldn't agree more. And we had this thing in Huntington. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go.
No, we had this thing in Huntington Village, where they shut down the street. I live in Huntington. They shut down the street. They put this big Christmas tree up during the holidays. And it was like the first time you saw like a community come out and just be music and the lights. And I felt a physical uplift being around that. You know, you're outdoors and you're around people, even if we're masked and spread out. Like it's so, you know, like, you know, the Norwegians are doing something right over there for sure. And they know that's what they need to do. They're used to that weather, I guess. And
no, that was a great event. Do you know who performed at that? My kid.
Who performed there?
My kid.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that was a great event.
I couldn't go down there, so.
But it really felt like it, you know, being outside, and they had a band out there, and there were people having coffee, you know, distant. It felt more like a real, quote unquote, typical event. You know, it was nice.
Yeah.
So if you can invite some of that, the Norwegians say there's no bad weather. There's only bad clothes. If you can bundle yourself up and get out, and you'll have an adventure. You'll have something to share when you come home. So that's a positive.
Absolutely. The outdoors is, you know, my wife and I have been, we started this pandemic really strong, walking every day. Like we got to get back into that. You know, like it's so much.
It's so easy to let go of when it's so easy to let go of when it's cold. And I've had single clients who were very active in going for walk dates and being outside, and they'd go to the park. They had circles in the grass and they'd kind of hang out with friends, socially distant. But now everybody's kind of hibernating, which is what we typically do, but they're not seeing anybody. So they've had to make efforts to getting out and walking around. You can walk around in New York. Now they have indoor dining, but they'd walk around looking for a place with an outdoor heater or doing something where they could interact with others. And I have had clients who've invited new people who approach the pandemic in the same manner, and they've invited them into their germ circle. So, you know, that way they have, you know, they have other people that they're interacting with. So.
Yeah. I think, you know, The word I've used so much over this year is like is being deliberate. You know, it's like we're so good at
Mm-hmm.
we've always a lot of us have had a wellness plan prior to this, and we've had to
Mm-hmm.
recreate it. Really, it really involves us to really get uncomfortable and think outside the box. Like last year, nobody would want to go outside and eat, but this year it
Right.
might be good. You know,
100%. Yeah.
spiritually to go out and be with someone, and you know, they have, at least these restaurants are being so creative with that. That can actually
Mm-hmm.
be good. It's not what we, you know, it's like not what we used to, but how do we utilize what we have? You know, to recreate
Right.
what I always say with couples. Let's recreate date night. You know, what does it look like now?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like you said, walking around, you know, up here in Huntington. I go up to Comset Park a lot. Maybe it's walking around Comset Park in the day, so it's not a night date. You know, maybe it's whatever, you know, for a couple or singles. We got to recreate what these things mean to us. It's hard.
Right. I think that's a great, yeah. But I think that whole idea of being deliberate is great, because you can still create a sense of community, which is very necessary now. You know, whether you go on group walks, group date, anything like that. And you know, I've also had, well, they're not together, but I've had dates where people will be able to do museum tours using their computers, or have a Zoom date with someone, which isn't, you know, they're not in the same room, but they've been able to get to know someone that way a little bit online, and then decide how they want to proceed from there. I also think it's a strange time because I'm sorry, I keep talking.
Well, what are some things that, like, I mean, when you're working with your singles there, what are some things that suggestions you give for them to help them stay connected during this time, to help them with their mental health and well-being?
Well,
Like,
as much as possible, where they can, they really rely on friends and maybe roommates, you know, people that they're around. Maybe they're not going to invite anybody new into their life, or they're not going to recreate a relationship with an ex, but really focusing on kind of community and family and friends, you know, their friend family and their family, so that they can interact and see people and be around them. They've also utilized, sometimes people have weighted blankets, because just having a sense of weight on you can make you feel a little bit better. It helps to move your skin and can release endorphins. And
ideas.
yeah, no, I love that.
I have one. I love mine. You know, like it's just very soothing settles me.
Yeah. And my child has like a heated thing. You can put the heater on it, and it's weighted on her chest. You put it in the microwave, and she heats it up for a minute, 2.5 minutes, and then she can keep it on her chest. And she likes the weight of it and the warmth. So you could do that. Self massage, and you know, people do that. That can also help to move the skin. Yoga cures everything, as you know, but it can help to center you.
How many times have I told you your yoga routine? I mean, I tell everybody about yoga, and I'm like, I got to do it more. I got to practice it more. So, you know.
Yeah, it really can, and it can put you in tune with your body and releases endorphins. So it can be this, that's terrific to do now. And it can be as gentle as you need it to be. And if you have a pet, cuddling with your pet does release all your feel good hormones as well. So if you do have a pet, you know, and you cuddle with them, I think that's a positive. Or, you know, people who feel
true though. Like, pets have been so popular during this thing. It feels good having a pet. I mean, it's like, it's not, you know, there's, again, that research in the brain and what it feels like. I come home and my pup I love that little pup, you know, like it just feels good to, you know, to be around a pet like that. And it gets us out of thinking, you know, because it's like I get stuck in Gordon and get miserable when I start thinking about the walking the dog or somebody else or something. That's where I feel a sense of relief, you know, my mental health goes a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice
And
to have
dogs,
the responsibility to take care of the dog. Yeah, and you can even, if you can't, I've had other people who've volunteered at a shelter if they felt comfortable doing that. You know, when they're around them. I think what also is a big puzzle at this point is no one knows. Everyone has a different level, a different risk level. whether they've, how comfortable they are leaving the house, how comfortable they are interacting with people. So when I have single people who are dating, what they really have to discuss right away is, okay, if we do meet up, what does that mean? Are we going to wear masks? Where are we going to go? Is it an outside date? Are you comfortable eating at a restaurant? That all has to be kind of untangled.
It's like the essence of all relationships, because I feel like a lot of couples I work with, it's the same exact conversation. Where one partner is more comfortable here, one's more comfortable here, and we have to really communicate. We got to really figure out what works for both of them, right? And be clear about our expectations. I'm not going to be doing this, or I want to do this. Like trying to figure out what people are, and that's all about communication. You got to speak at the beginning. Like it's so important, because that's a big challenge right now. People who are two different, in the same couple, people who are married a long time, and one person's not comfortable going out, and one person wants to go. There's different extremes of that. But how do we negotiate that? Right.
Yeah. The same thing with visiting. If you visit your parents too, I've had some who, the parent wants them to quarantine for 2 weeks before they come to the house, and it's not always possible. It's a lot of negotiation.
I do is, well, I don't know if it's what I think, but it's like it knows to not judge everybody for what they have to do.
Right.
It's so easy, like whether the person's single or it's a working relationship, like if my partner's not comfortable with something, me judging that, it's just going to add more stress to an already stressful time for all of us. Right. So it's like, how do I work on my own acceptance that it's okay? Like it's nothing wrong. Everyone's comfort level is different during this time, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. You have to honor that. To make someone do something they're not comfortable with and go out to a restaurant when they're not comfortable with it, no one's going to enjoy themselves, right? Because you're just there in that heightened of anxiety. So let's think about that. What are we arguing about, and what are we arguing for? Because we got to be very mindful of the outcome.
Right.
With couples, with singles too. It's like, I'm sure some of the single friends will want to go out and do. I live in Huntington. I see the people downtown all the time, and I'm sure some people are comfortable with that, and other people are not.
Right.
Right.
Yes, and that's where some people like to talk, are resistant to video dating, but it can help another person to feel like, okay, I've gotten to know you. Now maybe we can negotiate. They need more steps towards wanting to meet face to face. It's not the same as it was a year ago. Yeah. So
I know, like 11 months or something like that now.
Yeah.
But it's, listen, it comes down to, my own experience working with couples, working with single people. It's like, we have to be very clear about what we're comfortable with and not comfortable with. Again, communication, whether it's COVID or not. Some people may not want to go out on a date, get to know each other through online or whatever first and then go out. Same thing with couple. Like some people love going around in big crowds of people as couples, and other people are a little more silent. They have to negotiate that. That's a conversation,
Right. And I think the idea of honoring the other person and realizing, what are we fighting for? If you want to have a nice night out, compromising or talking it out and finding a way that's comfortable for both people is going to make it better in the end. It's not worth having a struggle or a conflict over it.
If you're dragging your partner out because you think you want to have a good time, and they're not going to have a good time, so what are we really achieving? And then, and really just putting a bridge between it, right?
Right. So and the same thing, if you're a single person and you're kind of pushing yourself out there because it's going to make someone else happy, or you think like you should, honor yourself and what your own comfort level is.
It's so funny because we think, being a single person, I think is a very different challenge than a couple, but yet there's a lot of parallels there, right? Even as a couple, you got to speak your mind and say, I want to do that, right? Or I do want to do that, or need to get outside. We need to recreate what spending time together with someone looks like, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It is very different, and yet some of the solutions are very similar.
Yeah, I agree.
Like getting out, like, were you creating a date, getting outside, all that stuff.
Yeah,
but the outdoors,
like you said, 100%. I think we should have to borrow from the Norwegians. So.
I got a little Norwegian. So I got to look into my people now. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
So
it is a challenge.
All right.
Such a weird time.
Well,
all right.
It's I think, and maybe we'll end up on this, but and I know we talked about this too. It's like, we got to remember it's been a year of trying to we've had to renegotiate what work looks like. We're renegotiating dating and relationships, and everything is different. It's just, everything is different, and we have to be, I always say, got to be gentle with ourselves. We got to, we're figuring this out, and ask for help if you need that. Talk to your friends, talk to a therapist, this is not easy by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. It's important to build that community so you can get that. And it's amazing how adaptable we really are.
Yeah. Okay. And I love when you get on a conversation like this, like, whether you and I are talking, or whether we're live or not live, or one of anybody's talking, like, we're all feeling the same thing. It's like, we're getting tired of this. We're burnt to this. And we want to be safe. We want our families to be safe. We want to, we want to do the right thing. And it's tough.
Mm-hmm. No,
I think
it's a challenge.
Yeah. Little self-compassion goes a long way,
Yes. Yeah. And you want to honor your own sense of what you need and want. That's important too.
And communicate. Be clear about it. I want to go outside. I do this, or I do want to do this, and start. That communication, I think, is key. So very cool.
I agree. All right.
So this was fun, though.
Was it? I was so nervous, and then I messed it up, I think.
We've known each other for 20 years, and right? 20? Would I lose?
Yeah, at least 20 years. It's been.
Why are
more
you
than
making a
20
face
years.
like? Oh, yeah. Yes, Gordon.
No, I'm always, because I feel like don't you feel like you're 33? I feel like I'm 33. How could you, every single time, people point out my age, which is not that. I'm like, oh.
We have, if people see this, should they take a guess at who's older? Because.
Well.
Yeah. What? No? You don't want to play that game?
I don't think we should play that game. I think you've always enjoyed playing that game.
I've always have. And I always see, I miss too, is joking with people face to face. I feel like, you kind of lose some of that on the video.
you think you lose some of your, you don't lose any of your charm.
Just as annoying.
It's any platform, on the phone, over video.
Anyone should do. I've been do for 20-something years now, so we'll keep at it. So, but this was fun. We do this again and talk about it some more, and maybe think of some other things we can do. It. Anybody has any comments or how do you do that? Suggestions?
Here. Can you see at the bottom? Here's where I look old. You can see at the bottom who's joined.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's Emily Dole, the legend.
Mama Life.
If anybody has any comments or suggestions of topics you'd like to see us talk about in terms of practicing wellness during COVID, feel free to type it in there. And thank you for being patient with us trying to figure out how to do the live thing.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Now we know. Yes.
Now we know.
We're learning new things. That'll help us stay young.
Always good.
Can you hear my dog snoring? Okay.
No.
See you too.
That's not right.
Over there snoring. All right.
All right.
Bother you soon. Okay.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.